See what's going on.
I watched them play Boise State to start the year, and then I watched that game in Gainesville. Um, it's hard nosed, a lot of power, which I appreciate. Get away from some of this zone stuff if we're not going to actually let them read. But no more of that crosstalk. I'm gonna keep the chat up, and
Oh man,
got the
Kentucky is
stats
about to
here.
fire Mark Stoops. What?
That's crazy because they have such a huge buyout for that.
What is happening?
Everything's going crazy. All right, hang on. I'm gonna blast this out to see if anybody wants to join us. I don't think anybody's in here yet, but this is always the most boring part of YouTube where I'm stat watching and trying to get this going. All right, we're up, we're kicking. You ready to do this thing?
Let's make it happen.
All right. Ladies, gentlemen, sports fans everywhere, welcome back to the Jungle Auburn podcast. It has been a week or so since the end of the Players Era tournament. I am your host, Ben, here with the best hair in the business, but I'm not alone today. I've got the best voice in the business to help break down the results of the Players Era tournament. Ike Jones of the War Report. Ike Jones, say hi to the fans.
Yeah, what's up? You definitely best hair. When you said that, I knew that wasn't about me. I don't have any hair, so I was like, "Where is he going with this one?" But yeah,
Listen. If you're live with us on YouTube, Ike's got a sweet hat on right now. I wasn't going to drop the dime. He decided to on himself. That's your own business. Ike, we're here to break down Auburn's run in the Players Era tournament. We did not win our off-season tournament this year. Auburn fans have been a little bit spoiled with us winning the Legends Classic, winning in Mexico. Obviously, last year winning the last Maui Invitational. That seems like it's going to matter for a long time. How did you feel about Auburn's performance in the Players Era tournament?
it was uneven, right? Like I think that's the best way to describe it. The double digits wins balanced out by the absolute annihilation makes it uneven in that regard. But even in the wins, it felt like they weren't dominant for 40 minutes in either of those games. Really slow start versus Oregon, and then you get a up and down situation. Like honestly, St. John's felt more of a dominant win. It's not going to feel like that because you had the deficit, but like Auburn controlled that game a lot and just had the lull there in the middle. But yeah, there's nothing redeemable about Michigan.
The only thing that I could say that's possibly redeemable is Michigan beat the other two teams they played by 40. Auburn lost by 30 in that game, 102 to 72. But you were right. It was an absolute shellacking start to finish. Michigan controlled everything about that game. But let's talk about some bright spots. Auburn gets that win against St. John's. It's just our ninth win ever against a ranked opponent in the non conference. Now, just to remind everybody where we came from, prior to last season, Auburn had four, count them, four. You don't even need every finger on your hand. Four wins against ranked opponent in the non-conference. And last season, Auburn doubled that number with four wins in the non-conference. So you've got to lower your expectations from having just watched the greatest Auburn team of all time. But I still think there's a lot to critique, and there was a lot that we learned about the way this team is going to play. We had some guys injured. We got some guys back. We had some surprising guys get sick and not see the floor at all. It was an up and down tournament for everyone, except for perhaps Tahad Pettiford. Tahad Pettiford led all scorers in the Players Era tournament, averaging more than 22 points a game. Ike, what did you like about Tahad Pettiford's game in all three challenges?
Yeah, I mean, it's the offensive performance that everyone has been expecting from Tahad from the beginning of the season. Like he was going to come out and be a double-digit scorer, be a guy who could potentially give you 20 a game. He found the. It wasn't even just the fact that he found the 3-point shot because that's important. I think he just kind of found the aggressiveness that he needed to have in order to be a scorer in this offense. And something that I like. Listen, I haven't had an opportunity to go in like because of course I was at these games, so I didn't get to like record them like I would normally do, so I could do film review. They were running sets for Tahad again, and so I think that that's a huge difference. Like when he knows this is set for me to score, he feels like he has a purpose on that possession. And I think it changes the aggressiveness in the way that he attacks offensively.
Absolutely. We saw a lot of Kevin Overton, of all players, actually running some point for us, bringing a steady hand from the senior there. We got some decent Kevin Magwood minutes in a couple of these games. Obviously, nobody had decent minutes against Michigan, but he did play 16 minutes, especially with Tahad and some foul trouble there. Tahad was also in foul trouble. He actually fouled out against Oregon. And let's start with that Oregon game. You mentioned the slow start there. It was another game where Auburn did not have a commanding halftime lead this year, tied 37-37 at the break. And Auburn going up against a true 7-footer with Keyshawn Murphy, our starting five, still sort of struggling a little bit and coming back from injury. Ike, what did you learn in our matchup against Oregon?
That strictly size is not going to be the disadvantage for this team when they are playing with the right kind of effort. You heard now both Coach Pearls talk about the kind of effort necessary to play the type of basketball Auburn wants to have. And Stephen Pearl talked about it in that when they play with the right kind of effort, they can negate some of the things that they're going to have as issues at size advantage. The size advantage isn't going anywhere, right? Disadvantage, I should say. It's not going anywhere. They only have one guy who's over 6'9" on the team.
Yeah.
So
and you saw that reflected in the rebounding column there. We've got the Justin Ferguson box score up here because we love it. And you can take a look there. Oregon out rebounded Auburn by 12 on the glass, but offensively, it was particularly bad. Oregon got a lot of their points in the second chance with 20 offensive rebounds, 22 second chance points. But you look at the points in the paint and you can see that that's where Auburn was at its best on that first shot. That
Yep.
first shot defense against Oregon was excellent. We held Oregon to only 38% from the floor. And as one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the nation, Oregon still shot better than us, but held under that magic 33% number, only 27% from deep. And Ike, we hit our free throws. How much of a difference does it make when Auburn is above 75% hitting free throws?
Listen, it is immeasurable because, again, when you are a team that is going to be undersized, the 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 best remedy you can have is getting to the free throw line because that means you don't have to finish up above a tree, right? Like it's an uncontested shot. You don't have to worry about whether it's going to get blocked, any of that kind of stuff. And if you're getting some of their bigs in foul trouble, it limits the way in which they can guard on the interior without getting additional fouls. So, but you kind of nullify that impact if you're not actually making the free throws, right? Like it's good to get people in foul trouble, great, but now you got to go make the free throws.
And speaking of foul trouble, we already mentioned that Tahad Pettiford fouled out, but we had some interesting front court alignments with Keyshawn Murphy picking up 3 fouls in the first half.
Yeah. Yeah, and Murphy's not a guy who, in his Mississippi State days, was fouling a lot. So I think that's something that they need to figure out because he needs to be able to stay on the floor. It is noticeably different when Murphy is not available out there on the floor and able to play free without having to think about whether or not he's going to get another foul. He's necessary, especially if you're not going to have Oporum playing any heavy minutes.
Yeah, and we did not see Big Mac very much in this game. He only finished playing 7 minutes, so just a couple of rotations for him out there. I think the key for me with our foul trouble in this game was the turnovers that we were forcing early. I believe Oregon had 12 first half turnovers. They finished the game with 18. It was a classic, I'm just going to call it Pearl defense because this transcends from Bruce all the way through to now Stevens teams. Forcing turnovers, playing fast, playing loose. And I think that led to a lot of guys trying to pick pockets. And then when you've got those active hands, easy time to pick up fouls. And with Keyshawn Murphy in so much foul trouble. We actually got a decent game out of Philip Jovic, I think. Four
Listen,
or four from
he
the
played
floor.
so much better in Vegas.
Yes. Right up until he injured his wrist against Michigan, but we'll save that for another game. The thing that I think was probably most surprising for this whole tournament was the lack of offensive production from guys like Elijah Freeman and Sebastian Williams Adams. Obviously, they were going up against a lot of size. Freeman's 6'6", Sway is 6'8", so they're big enough to play, but they're still sort of adjusting to the speed of this level of competition.
Yeah, Freeman specifically looked more timid offensively in Vegas than he had looked in the previous matchups. Even in the Houston game, he seemed like he was, in there and ready to go after it, but like he did not have the same kind of. He tried to turn it up in that game versus St. John's and got called for what I thought were questionable walk calls, but we'll talk about that. But Sway just he seemed out of rhythm. He still had the same
Mm.
kind of aggression, but his rhythm just didn't seem to be there when he was out there in Vegas. That was on the defensive end as well, even though he had some good defensive minutes. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that for them, the consistency being the thing that's going to hurt them, not necessarily their ability. Because as freshmen, you tend to have like, oh, they got to catch up with, like you said, the speed of the game. But sometimes they're playing at a non-freshman pace, and then sometimes they are playing at a freshman. So it's like, can we get some consistency on the higher end of what your threshold is?
Yeah, and we once again saw Sebastian Williams Adams with two incredible assists. His big to big passing vision continues to be amazing. I believe that was Big Meek's only basket, was a nice feed from Sebastian Williams Adams underneath. Uh, Keyshawn Hall, I was surprised to see him play in this game, but even more, I was surprised to see him play 36 minutes. No minutes restrictions on a rolled ankle. He clearly wasn't himself, and I would say he was not his defensive self for all of his time in Vegas. But put up 14 shots, 6 of 6 from the line. He was second in scoring with 18 points in this game. I'm pretty impressed with Keyshawn Hall's toughness.
Yeah, he definitely showed some resolve and his desire to just go out there and be an impact player for Auburn in a necessary situation, right? Like they needed his points and his minutes out there, particularly when you're at a size disadvantage. You can't go out like it showed itself later in the tournament when you start to, between the foul trouble and the availability, you have limitations on the interior. Had he not been able to play, I don't know that Auburn gets this win. I think he was absolutely necessary.
Big time. Auburn finished with 38 points in the paint to Oregon's 24. That's a 12-point differential in a game that was ultimately won by 11. So definitely having him as a guy that can bang inside was huge. Now, Auburn had only 14 assists on 30 made baskets. That's not quite that 50% number we'd like to see, but it's better than it had been in previous games. And it was much better than the game that we unfortunately do have to talk about, the Michigan game. A
Yeah.
30-point drubbing by the eventual tournament champion. A lot of folks are already locking them in as a 1 seed this year. They went out and backed up the Brinks truck to get Yaxel Lendenborg from UAB to transfer over. All anybody could talk about was the size disadvantage. But for me, it was less about Michigan's size disadvantage and more about their ability to distribute the ball. Auburn finished this game with only 3 assists to Michigan's 19 assists. I mean, you can make some arguments for length there, but I think they just got us so out of our sets and we're forcing so much ISO ball. And then of course we were having to jack up threes once we got so far behind. But what else went wrong?
Yeah, listen, Stephen Pearl talked about this, and when asked about the size um, difference between his team and Michigan, he's like, "Listen, they're going to switch basically 1 through 4 on everything. The only way to negate the advantage that they have is that you have to be moving with some urgency." And he just didn't feel like his team. They felt like they were going through the motions as opposed to like moving with like you need to be sprinting to your spot when you're going to play and set this screen. You need to be sprinting if you're making this cut. Like it doesn't need to be a kind of going through the motions and that's the only way because that forces them to react. When you move with urgency, the defense has to react. He said he didn't feel as if Auburn ever made Michigan uncomfortable. And once they got comfortable, it made it easier for them to just kind of go through their stuff and everything was flowing. And I agree with him. Like Michigan did not look phased the entire time today. It was just like, all right, we're going to come down and jack up another 3 in transition because we feel like we're going to make another one. And they did. They were absolutely unconscious from 3 for the vast majority of that game.
And to be fair, we shot pretty well from 3, though a lot of that came late. I believe Michigan ended the first half on something like a 21-2 run en route to a 28-point halftime lead. The second half was a lot closer. You can see in the score there if you're watching on YouTube. 41-43, a little more respectable. If that had been the halftime score rather than just the second half score, this game might have gone a different way. We did sort of start to find our rhythm. Caden Magwood hit some big shots late. Simon Walker came in and hit his first three-pointer since his explosive debut. Todd Pettiford finally found his stroke, 4 of 6 from deep and 4 of 5 from the free throw line. But that was another shocking statistic, was how rarely Auburn got to the free throw line early in this game.
Yeah, I think this is a team that is going to, when the free throw attempts are high, then you know that they're playing with the right kind of effort. I think that's the assist number and the free throw attempts number, I think, are going to be two numbers that you can circle and say Auburn played the way that they were supposed to if those numbers are in the right range. I think they need to be a plus, I'd say 30 to 35 to 40 attempt team, right? Like when they're really, really like on it. And hopefully the percentage that they make creeps up closer to about 75 plus. And then the assist number, you already talked about, like 50% of made baskets, right? Like they need to be there. And then, I didn't mention this as a number, but as a third number, like how efficient are they, like points per possession wise, is going to be a big thing for this team as well.
Yes.
Because if you're efficient in how you score, you get to the free throw line. Again, that's a thing that negates the fact that you're probably going to lose the rebounding battle versus more of the power four competition that you're going to go against just because you don't have the size.
Yeah, and you can see that in the numbers on the glass. Auburn was minus 16 in total rebounds, but it was minus 15 on the defensive glass. So when they missed, which they did a lot early, Michigan was there sucking in those rebounds. But to me, the stat that jumps off the page almost even more than the assist numbers is the points off the bench. I mean, we knew that we had a lot of guys that were adjusting to this level of competition. But when you think about guys like Oporum only playing 2 minutes, Simon Walker, he played 2 or 3 rotations up there, but only made 1 basket. Abdul Bashir, a complete non-factor almost for the entirety of Vegas. We later found out he was sick. Sebastian Williams-Adams played 20 minutes, but only put up 1 shot as a guy coming off the bench. And bench production has been a staple of Bruce Pearl teams over the last 5 years. And we've got a lot of guys that are adjusting to higher end competition. So we're going to have to hope that they can continue to develop. As Steven said after this game, sometimes you run into a buzzsaw. Auburn did this to a lot of really good basketball teams last year. I think about the Purdue game that we won by almost 20 points. You know, South Carolina a couple of years ago was ranked really highly and came into Neville and walked out with a 40-point loss. So, you know, it's college basketball. Sometimes it happens. And this Michigan team is clearly very good. I'm happy to turn the page on this one, unless you got anything else you want to talk about.
No, I mean, I think you're right. It was a combination of a lot of things. Auburn not playing their best and Michigan probably playing about as good as they possibly could. And so I think if you get a more of an average performance from both, like what you're going to see over the process of an entire season, if you took the mean of all of those, the average Auburn performance, meaning not their worst, not their best, and the average Michigan performance, Michigan probably still wins that game, but it's not going to be a 30-point blowout.
Yeah. All I can hope for is I think back to the last time Kansas won their national championship, and during the SEC Big 12 Challenge, Kentucky went in there and beat the brakes off of them in the Allen Fieldhouse by almost 30 points, and Kansas still won a championship. So I think this is when you probably got to burn the tape because, like you said, we played our worst, Michigan played our best, and that's reflected in the box score. Yeah. But probably the most impressive game that I think this team has played, I'm going to say even more so than the Houston going, even though St. John's is not nearly as good as the Houston Cougars, was that final game in Vegas. Because, again, you got punched in the mouth the night before, and most shockingly, Auburn completely let go of the rope right before half and wound up down 9 points at the half before they came storming back. What was the key to Auburn finding at second gear and putting St. John's away?
You know, I was looking at the box score at halftime in this, and I noted that Keyshawn Hall only had 2 points. And I was like, he's played way too many minutes in the first half for him to only have 2 points. They got to find a way to just get him the ball. The first 2 sets out of the second half went straight to him, right? it's flex, and they caught him on that opposite side swing that you get out of the flex. He pops out and he hits a three. Next time they get him a little baseline cut off of the secondary action on the flex, he goes up and he gets a layup. And I was like, 5 points in like the first three possessions. That's about what it needs to be. So he started that half just kind of showing up and saying, "Hey, all right, I'm here in this game. You guys, you might have forgot, but yeah, I'm one of the leading scorers in the country. Let's play basketball." And then, man, Tahad Pettiford got on a heater, bro, and I was just like, "Yo, he is taking this game over," and it was amazing to see.
And it was definitely like you talked about at the beginning of the podcast, getting him into set plays, having him come off curl actions around screens at the top of the key, and letting Kevin Overton run a little bit of point. He's been a steady hand towards the end of a lot of games, but Kevin Overton's fingerprints were all over this game from the start. He played 38 minutes and had a season high 5 assists. And of course, stat closest to my heart, 5 of 5 from the free throw line. Auburn shot 84% from the free throw line tonight or that night. 21 of 25. That is winning basketball, in my opinion, especially for a bunch of free throw merchants like I think the Auburn Tigers are going to be this year.
Yeah, no, listen, again, if they're shooting the free throws the way that they need to, because there's not really a player on this team that has poor free throw mechanics, right? Like they might have some bad free throw shooters, but all of them have good mechanics. So it comes down to being able to be having the concentration necessary to be consistent with it. Sway looks like he's going to be an awful free throw shooter, which is crazy because he has such a good jump shot. Yep. Right? Like he's got good touch, and it's just like, I don't get why that doesn't translate to free throws for him. It's not like Broome, right? Like Broome was a guy who he kind of had to learn to shoot the jump shot. He was a back to the basket big that was going to flourish around the rim, and he had a little bit of a step out. It's not like a Dylan Cardwell who's like, oh, he's got decent form, but he has no touch, and he had to really learn. Sway can shoot. And it's just like, I don't get why his free throws are like he's just not good at it. And you can say the same thing for a guy like Murphy, who can step out and shoot threes, but for whatever reason, when he goes to the free throw line, he's just not consistent there. Again, if Auburn's going to shoot free throws well, they're going to put themselves in a position because though they've played some really good teams, not every team is, even if they have size, is going to be deep. And so you get their front line in foul trouble, it becomes easy pickings on that second unit there because you've got guys that can go in there and give you effective minutes from your bench.
And look, to your credit, Sebastian Williams-Adams did improve his free throw shooting. I wouldn't say it was consistent, but it improved over the course of this tournament. He's shooting 72% on the year, which is great. And to your other point, Keyshawn Murphy hit a three-pointer in every game in this tournament.
And he had a big one in that St. John's game, really big three.
Oh, yeah. And it stretched the floor, and it allows us to continue running those 5-out sets like we ran with Broome last year, which I think is necessary when you're going to go up against these teams like St. John's that, once again, had a size advantage. And you see that reflected in the rebounding. I mean, we had this game pretty well in hand defensively, but St. John's grabbed 19 offensive rebounds. They had 24 second chance points. And, you could tell that their size was bothering us, but they didn't hit their free throws as consistently as we did. They weren't as good from three as we were, which meant they were having to settle for a lot of outside shots that I don't think they wanted to take. But this time, again, just a huge stat, and I think something that's going to be telltale for this team. 44 points from Auburn's bench to St. John's 30. And you look at a game where you have, once again, an 11-point win. There's a 14-point differential off the bench. I think Auburn's got to get contributors from that second line, that second unit that comes out there, if they're going to be successful, especially against size.
Yeah, I mean, if Auburn can get the bench contribution the way that it needs to be, a lot of teams are going to be in trouble, right? Like, because I don't love the amount of minutes that Tahad and Overton and Hall are playing right now early in the season, or even Murphy, right? Like, he's coming off of the injury, so he's a little more limited, and he's been in foul trouble as well. But because that doesn't bode well for the long grind of an SEC season that's ahead of them. But if you can start to get some better, more consistent contribution, particularly from guys like Magwood, I want to see Beck get in there and play a little bit more. If Aporum can figure it out, then it'll allow you to give your guys that you know you'll need in the final 4 minutes of a game
Mm-hmm.
enough of a break that they'll have the legs necessary to take you home. If they can figure that out, they're going to be dangerous because again, the SEC season is long and it's brutal, and it's physical every single game. So they've got to get that bench going a little bit more.
Yeah, we ran a lot of small ball lineup. We had Philip Jovic miss this game with a wrist injury, so we're hoping that we're going to get him back for the ACC SEC challenge. But I think we saw some sway at the 5 minutes, some real small ball, and I think that resulted in Auburn playing just a little bit faster. We finished with 18 fast break points. We won steals 9-5, and we had 16 assists on 29 made baskets. That is sharing the ball, passing well, seeing the open man, and again, getting those 2-on-1s in the open court, making sure that you finish and make guys pay for turning the ball over. We also finished with 20 points off turnovers in this game, and that was where we really made St. John's feel it.
Yeah, I think playing faster is absolutely a recipe for success. Again, if you're going to be a smaller team, then you need to be a fast team, which is why the 3-point shooting is so like like you also need to be able to shoot the three well to be able to stretch those teams out so that listen, like you mentioned Murphy being able to step out and shoot the three. That means that big has to come away from the basket a little bit more, which means to hide downhill. You've got a big trailing rather than a guy that you got to finish over the top of. Like all of those things are important to being a small ball team, whether you are small just because you don't have the size or small because you're playing actually small. You need to be able to play fast and you need to be able to stretch the floor. Auburn can do one of those things really well. The other one, it's up and down.
It's a work in progress. As our
Even though
shooting
again they did it
percentages-
well versus Michigan, did it well versus St. John's.
Mhm. Well, and again, sometimes in a losing effort, you start to finally play a little bit looser down 30. You're going to hit some of the open shots. Michigan's not going to be playing defenses hard up 25 with 5 minutes to go. But again, it's all in my mind about this team starting to trend in the right direction. We've got an entirely new roster. Tahad Pettiford is trying to figure out his new role, no longer as a spark plug, but as a leader on this team. And I think he really emerged as a solid leader in this tournament. Auburn is creeping back up. We're at 32.8% on the year shooting the three ball. If we can get above 33%, I think that's probably this team's ceiling, but maybe we can go a little higher. We'll see. We're definitely not peaking too early on that. We're creeping back up. We're at 70.8%, so we're almost to 71% shooting from the free throw line. And we're averaging just over 9 steals a game and even just more slightly over 9 turnovers a game. So we're starting to balance that, forcing turnovers with giving the ball away. I think if we can get those numbers, just rotate it just a little bit more in our favor, that's going to give us an opportunity. And the assist numbers continuing to creep back up. We're up to 14.6. We're closing in on about 15 assists per game. We're going to average somewhere between 28 and 35 made baskets. So keeping it around 15 assists a game, I think those are all good signs. I don't know. This team has been such a mystery, and we had so many key injuries right at the beginning of the year that watching a team go out west, overcome some adversity, take a punch in the mouth, and then get back up and keep swinging. I'm feeling more optimistic about this team than I was heading into the tournament. How about you, Ike?
Yeah, I mean, it feels good to see them get those wins, right? Like, you talk about Auburn fans being spoiled by last year's team. One of the hallmarks of that team was their ability, unlike the year before that, Auburn looked good early in the season where they were blowing everybody out, but they couldn't ever win close games, right? You felt really good about the Auburn team because in the Maui tournament, they were winning close wins against quality competition over there in Maui, specifically the Iowa State comeback, right? Like you feel like, oh man, this team knows how to close, right? Like, oh my goodness, like because the year before they couldn't close anything, right? Like it was just like every time it was going to be decided by less than 10 points, Auburn was losing that game. So it's like blow people out or they lose. This year's team, a little bit of a mixed bag, right? They lost the Houston game, a game that was absolutely winnable. But then they haven't won a close game unless you can count Bethune-Cookman, right? That went to overtime.
Mm-hmm.
But you do see a team that is capable of taking a shot, meaning St. John's, listen, like you said, inexplicably, they just were just like, we don't need to close this half playing basketball.
Yeah.
And then they came out of the half and they clawed their way back into that game because it seemed like every time Auburn started to get close, St. John's would pull away again. You're just like, oh my God, they're not going to do this. And then right around that 9-minute mark left in the half, Auburn just reeled them in.
Yep.
And you love to see a team that is capable of doing that, of saying, like, no, it's not how it's going down tonight. We're going to figure this out. So that does give you some confidence that they can repeat that because you've seen them do it.
Yeah, we saw them do it against Houston too. It's the 6 possession swing, stringing together 3 trips down the floor where you score and 3 trips where the other team comes down the floor and does not score. That gives you usually somewhere between a 2 and 3 possession lead. And now the other team is playing catch up, and you can trade a little bit basket for basket there.
Right.
It's where you want to be at the under 8 for sure, but it's definitely where you want to be at that last TV timeout at just under 2 minutes. We have not quite the marquee matchup that we had last year when we were undefeated heading into December in the SEC ACC Challenge, but we do have another ranked opportunity coming up. NC State is coming to Neville Arena. Are you going to be there for that one?
I will not be at that one, unfortunately. Mike G, my compatriot, he will be taking that game, but it's going to be an interesting one, right? Will Wade, the NC State coach now, so they're a program that's trying to figure out what it's like under a new regime as well. And, I think it's going to be an interesting game. I haven't had a chance to watch NC State play yet. That's one of my tasks for this week, is to go watch a little NC State basketball so I can know what we're getting ourselves into here. But I am interested to see how Auburn's going to perform with this one in their own house.
And NC State was one of the teams that went out to Maui this year. The slightly less prestigious, not a lot of big name teams involved. Seton Hall, USC, obviously Texas from the SEC. But I believe NC State might have been one of the higher ranked teams involved in that tournament. They lost their first game to Seton Hall, managed to beat Boise by 11, and then lost in their final game to Texas, 102-97. So they've also played, had a little bit of a rough tournament, definitely rougher than the Tigers did. But they've got a lot of talent. They've got a lot of guys playing a lot of minutes. They're currently led in scoring by Darian Williams, a 6'6" senior forward from Sacramento, California, playing that Will Wade run and gun offense. I'm going to hope that the Neville Arena 10-point swing can lead to another victory for us. Like, it would be our 10th ranked non-conference win of all time, and I think that gives you a lot of momentum heading into the big one at the end of the week when we go to Tucson, Arizona, where Ike Jones will be live after the game with the War Report. Is that right, Ike?
I am definitely planning on doing that, man. I think it's going to be a fun trip, even though Arizona looks like another juggernaut out there. But
oh yeah,
it's still one of those games where, again, if Auburn plays like they should, they can make it interesting. Like, and I think that's the thing. I'm looking to see, do you have another Houston or do you have another Michigan? Like, that's what's really going to be the thing that I'm looking for. Win or lose, if you lose, which of the brands of losing is going to be happening with this Arizona team? And if you happen to win, then, I'm just going to bug like crazy, and we'll just I'm declaring that we're going to go to the national championship right after that.
That's right, baby.
But I am looking forward to seeing just what type of team takes the court out there in a truly road hostile environment, the first one that you're really going to have this year, and see what it looks like for them.
And again, you just have to think about where this Auburn program came from. Even just 3 or 4 years ago, this marquee road matchup in December was at App State.
Right.
And now we're playing the team that is perennially predicted as the college basketball team that's finally going to win a championship west of the Mississippi River, because it hasn't been done in like 30 years or something like that. So the fact that we can get Arizona on the schedule, I believe we've got a home and home with them. I think they're going to come to Nev next year, which is also, again, just incredibly exciting to have these marquee matchups. It's a great time to be a basketball fan. It's an even better time to be an Auburn Tiger. Ike Jones, thank you for joining us. You got anything else you want to add before you sign off?
Nah, man. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to a good week of basketball.
If you're not subscribed to the War Report, hit the links in the show notes. We will send you to the channel. You do not want to miss Saturday night with Ike out there in Tucson. War Eagle, everybody.
War Eagle.
All right. I think that's got us about a nice half an hour.
Cool.
All right. I'll send you the audio file once this is all done and set up.
I appreciate it, man.
Hey, appreciate you. Try to get a little bit of sleep tonight. I know you won't get much.
I probably still have a couple more hours left, but I'll definitely try to kill it before midnight if possible.
All right, man.
All right.
Appreciate you jumping on YouTube. Shout out Chris Thomas. We didn't get you in the podcast. We appreciate you hopping in the chat earlier.